I'm Jared Owens, married to Racheal. I have two sons, Sydney and Elijah, and we've been going to Parkland Chapel. I've been going to Parkland Chapel since 2018. When my mom was still alive, she passed away when I was about 12 years old. She had took us into church. As a small child, I had severe asthma, and we had gone to a Bible study at a home and they prayed over me, and I've never had any asthma symptoms since. So I was like, I knew what God could do. There were a lot of different times where we'd be in a bad position. My mom would just be like, let's all pray. And then the car would start after it had been broke down, and, just all kinds of things. But after my mom passed away, I really had this resentment, like, God, why? Why? I was just angry at God for things I didn't understand. We grew up really poorly in a poor home and with an abusive father and a lot of drugs and alcohol going on. And that's really all I had to draw from. My experience, I went out, we lost my mom and we lost our little sister by the time that I was ready to enter the world after high school. And just was not super well coping. I had Sydney with his mom and did my best to become a good father and a good man for him, but I just really didn't have the coping mechanisms. So I used a lot of alcohol, drugs, and sold a lot of drugs, and I wound up in prison. And that's where I came to the Lord. I was homeless on the streets, running from the police, shot at, been involved with a lot of different, just all the craziest things that you can imagine were just everyday occurrences for my life. I was hopelessly addicted to heroin and meth, and that was my only motivation for anything I did. One day I was sitting on a curb waiting for my heroin dealer to come, and I'd been waiting for a few hours. It was late at night, and this is in Springfield, Missouri on the north side, which is a lot of homeless camps, a lot of crime, things go on up on the north side. And we were sitting there and this man pulled up and he got out, and I'm like, oh great, this is the cops, because he was not anybody I knew. He said, well, as I was driving by, he told me that he's going to the Bible college there, and he said as he was driving by, the Lord spoke to him and asked him to come pray over me, and he did. He came over and he said a prayer, and I remember walking away that night thinking that although I'd forgotten about God, he hadn't forgotten about me. That was kind of the catalyst for a lot of slow change. It was a couple of weeks later I was picked up on some warrants and headed to prison. After I decided to just turn my life over to God, it was just one day this old man just came into the chapel and he just started clapping his hands singing, "This is the day that the Lord has made." And I just remembered those times, and I felt the Holy Spirit in the room then, and I'm like, this is all real. I'm a fool. The creator of the universe, who am I to take on the creator of the universe and try to go my way? I'm like, maybe let's just try to go his way for a little bit. Just decided that the best that I could do has got me to prison. So I gave the Lord just complete control of my life, and he's just done amazing things since then. So when Syd was little, his mom and I split up, and then there was a lot of back and forth, split custody business and trying to one-up each other on some level, and just kind of prevented any sort of really close relationship. And I was trying to be a father on top of just dealing with a lot of my emotional and spiritual issues.
He was definitely he was a good father, I'll say that much. We've had a lineageship where it's like his father was abusive, physically, and his father's father was sexually abusive to him. And it seems like every generation we've gotten a little bit better. And my dad just wasn't really much a parent in my life, but he was still a good father.
There are a lot of things I could have done better, been a better example. I know some of the early lessons I was teaching him came from a point of atheism or just some of my twisted perspectives on life.
And I say he did a good job. He just obviously, I wasn't saved. My father's the one who brought me to Christ anyways, and he brought me to Christ over multiple phone calls from prison. And then eventually when he got out, and of course I wanted to see him, and I don't know, I just came to Christ with him, went to Parkland Chapel.
We're basically just two men encouraging each other to follow Christ, and we get to talk about that. And it's the same way with my brother Caleb. I just have like these good Christian men in my life, and they're my family too. And I don't know, I couldn't ask for anything greater than what I have with my family. But God has restored that and put that in order. Sydney has every reason in the world. He could resent me. He could not talk to me. He could have followed a destructive path.
I never even considered the option of not being there and being like, hey, I don't want to see you whatsoever. I mean, that wasn't even a thought in my mind. I guess I didn't even realize that, and I still don't. It's just not the kind of person I am. I'd rather have a father in my life who's a great father now and wasn't a great father before than no father at all. So
I'm so proud of the man that he is. He is the greatest. He's a really good guy, and I'm glad I get to be his dad.
If he's seeing this, then look, Dad, I'm proud of you, and you've done a great job. Just keep doing what you're doing. And like I told you the other day, I really see the Lord in you. I mean, you are a good father. You're a good example of a good father, and I see the Father himself in everything that you do.
God has blessed us with Elijah. So, I've got my 19-year-old, then I've got a newborn. And he wasn't supposed to be here, That was a total blessing. The doctors had told Racheal that she didn't have a baby inside of her, and that it was just, you'll have to ask her, an empty sac, essentially, and they were fixing to remove it. And he just appeared.
Jared and I had gotten pregnant in December of 2021, and I happened to miscarry. And so after that, we were just leaving it up to God if I was going to get pregnant or not. We didn't really worry about it. So when I got pregnant again, I went kind of earlier to the doctor just because of the past miscarriage. And when I went, they didn't see anything on the screen for the ultrasound. They said that I was having a blighted ovum, is what they call it, which is where it's fertilized, but there's just nothing in the egg. So basically there was just no baby. And this was small group time. So my mom came up, we went to small groups. David Williams prayed like the most fantastic prayer over me. Pastor Mike just randomly showed up at the small groups, although I think he came for the ribs because it was rib nights at Chris and Carmela's house. Yeah. Anyway, so they came and they all laid hands over me and prayed over me, and me and my mom went and did another ultrasound, which I was against. I kind of just wanted to be done with it. They wanted me to go for another ultrasound. I wanted to have a DNC, which means that they just cleaned everything out because I just wanted to be over with, I didn't want to carry it out. But they convinced me to go for another ultrasound. So me and my mom went to Missouri Baptist and did another ultrasound. And I remember thinking, whatever happens, that it happens. God has got it no matter what. And that I would be okay no matter what happened. But I was just laying there, and all of a sudden there was a heartbeat, and me and my mom were like, what is that? They're like, that's your baby. And so, yeah, now he's here. And it's been, my pregnancy, I didn't have any complications or anything.
It was a blessing, and we're just so grateful to get to be his parents and raise him. So many possibilities. You just see him and you're just like, what does God have planned for you? Like, God, what can I do to be a father to this child? Because I have no reference points. I have no good example of how to be a father. So God is my only guiding light. From the place that I was at before I turned my life over to Christ as an adult, it was the worst. I felt like the best thing that could happen to me would just be for me to pass away to overdose. And then at least my family would have peace and not worry about where I'm at or, you know, what kind of trouble I was into, or like my sister and my brother will tell you, they were always just expecting the phone call. I'm like, where I was at that point, the greatest thing I could have hoped for is just to die. But I have so many reasons to live now and like so much joy, and I love that the Lord's equipped me to with all these experiences so that I can help people. I meet people all the time, you know, when I'm working in the city or wherever I am, just so many opportunities where I get to pray with somebody or just to talk something out with somebody and get to be the light for them. That's what I always tell Racheal, you know, as we go about our day. I'm like, just be the light, babe. It's just a beautiful thing. I never could have imagined that I'd have any of this in my life. I didn't think I was ever destined for happiness or peace, but it's just overflowing out of our home, really.